Alright, so I saw The Little Mermaid today, the new one that is, but both of them are available in 3D, the 1989 one and the 2023 one. Let's talk about it. Yes, the original, 1989. It was a big turning point in Disney's history. They were coming from a low period that had lasted from Disney's death until then, struggling with identity. And up until that point, the main focus of animated films was mostly anthropomorphic animals. Any attempts at having animated humans be the starring roles wasn't terribly successful. But this was the beginning of what was known as Disney's Renaissance, at the beginning of lots of movies starring humans, as well as animals. And the animation itself has more of an old-fashioned, if you will, look to it, a more two-dimensional quality to the two-dimensional animation, because it was before computer animation took over hand-drawn animation, where they would scan it into the computer and render it on a computer, like they did with The Lion King, for instance. But this was all done optically. They did have, for instance, a shot of coming down the stairs in The Little Mermaid. That was done on early computer animation, but back then that was all printed optically and edited in the old-fashioned way. And otherwise, the animation doesn't have those persistent realistic shadows like they could do with the CAP system. So anyway, speaking of Lion King, that was converted, released theatrically, pretty successful as well. And they started converting others too. They did Beauty and the Beast, and they did The Little Mermaid, converted it to stereoscopic 3D. Unfortunately, by this point, not much of a push, as much as they did with Lion King. And that effort died out, along with Disney's interest in 3D in general. But I gotta say, the conversion job on this since it was released in 2013, they were getting better at it. Lion King was good, but it did have a lot of dialed back depth in many shots. They did some strong shots. Some of the depth was a small actual range of depth in the scene, but the whole thing was pushed back a little farther than it needed to be into the screen to make it look like it had more depth when it didn't. And some of the rotoscoping had a little bit of a paper cutout effect. But this conversion, it was very, very good. Of course, since it's underwater, that's just made for 3D when you've got things floating in this space. Like, for instance, all the bubbles floating around, and you can't even tell they were cut out. They did such a quality job. And some of the shots had really strong disparity. Like you're really looking into the scene, and I didn't notice any artifacts there. And also, besides that, on the other end of the spectrum, even small nuances that they took care to do. Like the chef's nose and mustache, all on different planes of depth. And even other little small details of individual objects having different layers. Even the opening titles were kind of made for 3D, having the other merpeople swim kind of through the titles, and they took care with the 3D to have it match and not conflict. And as is common in 3D conversions, particle effects like rain are often added over top of the conversion to enhance the 3D effect. But in those action scenes with the rain, they didn't rely on that. They had a full range of actual conversion based on what was in the scene, plus the rain effect in the front as well. So you ended up getting this huge range of depth, and it was really effective. Now, as for the new one, first let's talk about the 3D. The new logo that's shown at the beginning, the Disney 100 logo, it's a nice logo from a visual perspective, but not from a 3D perspective, unfortunately. It does have a little bit of 3D, you can see in the title when Disney comes in the front, but it's nothing like the logo that we've had for some years now, where that Disney logo is really in front. This one is very weak 3D, unfortunately, but it is a temporary logo, most likely, unless they just take out the 100 going forward, in which case oh well, we're kind of stuck with that. But as for the movie itself, it has very medium to strong 3D throughout. A number of moderate 3D shots throughout the film. It's sort of interspersed, so you don't know what you're going to get, but by and large, it's medium, as well as some highlight scenes interspersed throughout of strong 3D. So it's very solid, definitely, of course, the preferred way to see it. And Disney has been known to use floating windows, a technique they use on lots of their movies, animated movies as well as live action movies, and I didn't notice any floating windows. Lots of so-called window violations, but not the bad kind. I mean, just the kind where you've got strong 3D and objects that aren't the object of focus on the edge that will be jutting past the screen without any attempt at floating windows. And in case you don't know what that is, that's a black bar that's put on the side to give the illusion of an extension of the window frame so that you don't see any jarring effect when something in negative parallax is partially obstructed by the frame of the screen. So a floating window is a subtle effect they use to mitigate that, but it's not always necessary, and especially when you're watching at a theater, I don't think it's an issue. It's just part of strong 3D, and when it's not something that you're focusing your eyes on when you're looking in the middle, it's not bad at all. It's actually kind of effective. And probably one of the highlights, even in 2D, I'm sure, but especially in 3D, is Under the Sea. That song. Big number. Lots of computer animation, of course, mostly. Besides Ariel, obviously. But besides that, that's nothing but pure, unadulterated eye candy. Beginning to end. A lot of fun on a big screen in 3D, and towards the end there's this nice strong stereo shot of looking down through a spiral of fish and other creatures. So very strong 3D in that one. Look out for that. So is there anything I didn't like about the movie? Honestly, anything I didn't like is very minimal and isolated. There's a few things I can think of towards the beginning. The bird, I forget the bird's name, but now the bird is a girl now. The bird flew under the water to talk to Ariel. I mean, I get it, birds dive underwater to catch fish and stuff like that, but they don't fly under and then chill and breathe. It doesn't work that way, so that really took me out. I was like, wait, you're having a bird talk underwater? Come on now. Maybe they felt that would give Ariel's scene more weight later when she actually went above the surface, if she wasn't already in the habit of it. But another choice was that iconic shot from the original where she sings the reprise of Part of Your World, and she jumps up on that rock in the middle of the water, and the water splashes behind her. They recreated that shot, but they kind of missed the reference. Like the original, it was to recreate what you see on the masts of ships, where maybe a mermaid is carved in wood at the front there, and that was the shape of the rock. But in this movie, they just had it as this general round rock that she was in the middle of, so that kind of missed the point of that. And the other thing would be the music. Obviously, the original songs are iconic. They're good, toe-tapping, catchy. But they brought in Lin-Manuel Miranda because he's so hot right now, And honestly, I think it would have even been better without him. I don't think he added anything to the movie. There was a song with Eric singing, and that song felt just pretty unnecessary. And plus the actor, he did well in the role, but just for this one song, it feels like he was just overdoing it. And it just felt like an unnecessary detour. And then one of the other new songs was this weird way to advance the plot of Ariel finding out about Eric getting married. And the bird and the crab sing this song called Scuttlebutt. And again, that song just felt so unnecessary and awkward and out of tone with the rest of the musical style. It was Lin-Manuel Miranda doing what he does and resorting to rap when all else fails. So yeah, it just felt awkwardly shoehorned in there. The fact the rap was done by Aquafina, who does the voice of the bird, I mean, no comment. But otherwise, I think the movie was very excellently done, and not just because they did well with the source material. It wasn't just paint by numbers, kind of like The Lion King was, but they actually felt like there was soul in it. The acting, the directing, and any slight adjustments made to the writing felt like a net benefit. So this one I wouldn't say it felt like a soulless remake. It felt like just a good movie, and it was. Like a worthy alternate version. There was good improvements to it too, like Ursula, the way she initially met Ariel and tempted her, it felt more realistic in this movie. In the original, for me at least, it seemed a little bit too over the top, like that would turn anybody off. Like if you're attempting to tempt someone, maybe she didn't do the best job. But in this one, she actually did seem sympathetic at first and phony nice. So that's more realistic, more believable. Also, speaking of Ursula, they gave more screen time to her alternate version. The illusion that Eric is bewitched to see, this young version that stole Ariel's voice, she gets more screen time, and even while it's still relatively small in the whole movie, it is gripping and does a good job at it. And as for Eric, they did great by him too. They added more to his character. He wasn't as two-dimensional. What I really liked was that they gave him a parallel of Ariel. So they had actually something in common, which makes sense if it's going to be a romance. They had Eric be a collector of these things related to the ocean, just like Ariel was in these things related to the land. And also to have that parent-child conflict on his end in regards to expectations, things like that. And also a nice little touch was one of the thingamabobs he collected was a little mermaid figurine. So they actually called it a Little Mermaid. And that was a plot element that carried throughout. Sadly, not much of a chance at this point it'll be on 3D Blu-ray anywhere, unless Disney does a 180. There is, however, a chance that it could make it to a Russian streaming service, like other movies have recently, like the Mulan remake and some of the animated films. So if that does happen, we could get a leak, and possibly even a restoration by someone named Chris, a Christoration, and hopefully that happens at the very least. Obviously we're hoping for 3D Blu-ray, but you never know. So yeah, go catch that. See you next time.